Thank you very much. I'll be speaking in English. Hello, everyone. What I can tell you right now is that some of you in this room are sitting on a content goldmine that you probably have not yet discovered, and now it's time to discover it together and look at it together. What I'm going to talk about today is evergreen content. It's about content that is valid for a long time. It fits well with what Thomas Lindner just said. It's a quarterly magazine, perfect evergreen content. Julia Jäkel talked about magazines, evergreen content. So that's potentially something today for you as newspaper publishers and content experts that might be useful for you. We're talking about 4 concepts that you need to understand to do your own evergreen content strategy. When you know the 4 concepts, we will move on to the 7 steps of evergreening that we use at the Ebner Media Group. You've heard from Garrett, my CEO today. We're on the same board. What the Ebner Media Group is. So I'll not be talking about the company. I'll be talking straightly about our strategy today. You can take that home to your teams and start crafting and building your own evergreen content strategy. When we talk about evergreen content, the first thing we always talk about is focus on the audience and not the product. We don't need to spend much time on that. You've seen all these charts today from my CEO, Garrett. This is what we talk about when we start talking about evergreen content. We start about discussing the audience, really understanding that it's not about the magazines that we produce, or the websites, or the newsletters, or any other channel. It's about the content behind that that reaches out to the audience that has specific desires. Why do we do that? Why do we do this? We focus on the audience because you've heard that there's a core target group of people who's interested in any given topic. It might be watches, it might be news, it might be politics, it might be business, it might be sports. This is the most essential part of it. You need to understand what your audience wants, what they are interested in. They have a specific desire. And as you've heard, is that in our case, when we started doing the transformation about 6 years ago in 2011, 2012, we saw that our products, the magazine, the website, and all the other products did not capture the entirety of the audience. They only captured a small fraction. And we've seen that there's a wide target group that's out there that we don't reach yet. So this is essential for evergreening. Think about the wide target group, the people you do not have yet. Evergreens are mostly about the people you don't have yet. It's the people you want to get with the content you already have. Let's move on to the next concept. How do we do that? How do we identify and find the people we don't have yet? It's a persona building process. We use the so-called 5 rings of insights. It's a 5-step process. We talk to the audience. We want to understand how do they use content, on what device, what time of day, what kind of format do they want, what don't they want. This is essential to understand your audience. You need to understand this 5-step process towards consuming content. Start talking to your audience, start talking to the people you don't have. Use this process, take it home, and really start crafting your content strategy based on personas so you know exactly what your desired audience is doing with content, what they're not doing, what prevents them from reading your content and reaching out to you. When you've done that, you might probably see something like this. This is the result at the Ebner Media Group. We call it persona cards. They look like this. These are 3 cards from an actual magazine. It's for event managers in Germany. What I can tell you is this. Before we started doing the personas, we were only covering this fraction of the audience. It's the CEO of a small event management agency, the event manager in a 5-star hotel, but the most important asset is that this is only 20% of the event management audience in Germany. 80% of the market is driven by the other 2 persona groups. These are the assistants of the first persona. This is a lady working at a small to medium-sized business. She's running maybe 10 events a year for her sales team, for the editors. She's not a professional event expert, but she needs content. She needs checklists, she needs advice, she needs help, and you need to produce the content to help her. And these 2 ladies, these 2 audience groups are 80% of the German event management market. So before we started building personas, we were only reaching out to 20% of the potential market. The wide target group, the people we did not reach, were 80% of the market. And suddenly you see how huge this opportunity really is for evergreen content, for repurposing your existing content for the wide target group that you do not have yet, potentially. Once you've done that, once you've done the 5 rings of insight process, you will also get something like this. We call it, it's a persona channel matrix. You will list all the channels your personas are using every day. You will list all the platforms. They will tell you, when you do the interviews, what kind of content they expect, what kind of format they need or don't need. And then you can start, these are usually very long lists, lots of columns and lots of lines. Now you can start mapping your process. You can now start mapping your content process to all the audience groups that you want. Also, from a management perspective, since I'm a board member together with Garrett and our COO, we're interested in measuring our content success. This is how we measure success, for example. This is an example of an Ebner content goal matrix. Now you can measure all kinds of things because you know what the audience is doing with the content. You can map that against your monetary success and start building out very elaborate management systems to really understand the metrics and the fundamentals from a business side of your company. But that's just one example. There are more things you can do with personas. I just wanted to bring you 2 examples so you see how we put that into practice. The next concept you've heard already as well. I'll just repeat it once again so it's really in your head so you really understand how we produce and look at content. It's minimum information units. You have heard that any given subscriber of the Ebner magazines, we produce 88 magazines at the moment and about 45 websites. Any of our subscribers do not read the whole magazine. They just maybe read 2 or 3 articles. So they are, the existing audience also is the wide target group, the people we don't reach with our content. So the question is, how do we reach them? If they don't read the magazine or the website or the newsletter or any other platform, how do we reach them? We break content apart. You've seen all of that. We break content apart into minimum information units. We do not look at long print pieces as just long print stories. It's also true for a newspaper. We look at these pieces as a long collection of small minimum information units. And this is what you should be doing as well when you start talking about repurposing archive content and evergreen content, is understand the atomized structure of your content. Drill it down to the very tiniest piece of information you can get. Think of it as a bunch of Lego pieces. It's nothing else. It's really Lego pieces. What you've just seen, this example story of Garrett and me, it's maybe 10 minimum information units, but essentially it's a collection of Lego pieces. You might have a video. Nowadays, when I go to our teams and I really force them to do videos and I urge them to think about a smart way of producing videos, I now tell them, and that's our strategy for 2017, one video is not one video, it's 5 minimum information units. What is it? It's no secret. Here we go, it's the video itself, it's the audio stream, which Garrett mentioned, but it's also maybe a collection of screenshots you can take. It's maybe quotes from social media that you can take for social media, and it's the transcribed text from the video if there's good text in it. So suddenly, one video becomes 5 minimum information units. That's a very powerful concept for using one video to really drive your digital content strategy. When we move on to the next concept, why do you need to understand that? Because there is something which Garrett showed you. It's this, and we use that for evergreening as well. So when you start building evergreens, I will show you in the 7-step evergreen strategy how we do that. You will be using the channel metrics. You will drill down your content into minimum information units and then map them against all the channels you see. This is essentially a large chart with many channels, and you will map your evergreen archive content against this matrix. How do we do that? We have a small program. It's developed in-house. We call it the Ebner Content Planner. What you see here is an actual screenshot taken from our production system. Here is the editor-in-chief, Mr. Heinrich, planning for an article for the event magazine story. You've seen the persona cards from the event magazine. Now Mr. Heinrich is planning his story. He's mapping out the minimum information units. He's assigning a date. He's assigning a channel and a content format, and now he's planning his content. But why do we do that? Because there's a system behind it. There's a so-called depository system. There are separate storage systems and parts in our technological infrastructure. Now we can break the content apart and store each minimum information unit separately. Now we can break the content apart and really map it as a small selection of data in our technological system. And why do we do that? Let me show it to you in 1 second, because when we start publishing and producing content, we go back to these depositories. The content planner, the small screenshot you've just seen, will go back to the content management system, and he will say, oh, I need to produce an evergreen now, today. I, as the content management system, I have been assigned to publish an evergreen. He will take the minimum information units that have been selected as part of this long story and will publish it. So for us, content and the infrastructure behind it, all the systems, have been broken apart into the tiniest pieces possible. This is how we produce content and how we look at content. And now it's time for evergreen content. How do we do that? What you will see today are the 7 steps we use every day at our company. You can take them home. You can repurpose them. You can talk to your team and start producing your own evergreen content. If you have any troubles or issues, just reach out to me, ask Hans Oberauer for my email address and contact data, and reach out to me, let me know if you have any problems, and maybe I'll be helpful to you and help you guide you through the process of selecting the right evergreen content and implementing it in your editorial workflows. It's really no secret. It's not a huge strategy. It's just a step-by-step iterative process. When you do that, you might see growth curves like that. These are actual Ebner numbers. This is one of our magazines, one of our watch websites, but they're also true for many other websites at Ebner. Before we started doing evergreening, this is the left third of the chart you see. The growth was steady, maybe like your website. But once we started really focusing on evergreens, the growth curve really kicked off. And not only on the website, also on the newsletters, because there's the widget conversion system behind it. You've seen that today, the context-relevant widgets. Then the digital subscribers, for instance, the tablet subscribers also kicked off, but the social media audience loves our evergreens as well. So this is what happened at Ebner when we started doing evergreens. You might say in the past we had a collection of little goldfishes, news-based goldfishes, but once our teams really started producing evergreens, we suddenly had this collection of kois, huge, nice kois. This is how we produce content, and this is an actual traffic chart from taken in April at Ebner. You see the traffic share here of our 45 websites, roughly half are B2B, the other half are B2C. And you see that already 33% of traffic on B2B is driven by evergreens. 55% for B2C is driven by evergreens. That's predictable, scalable, monetizable traffic, 55%. I don't know how much further this will go. Maybe it's only 60% as a threshold, but this is an amazing number, and it's exactly what we want it to be. This is precisely what we wanted to have. And maybe this will happen on your website as well. There was a small exercise. I will not elaborate long on that. The exercise that our internal teams did is comparing news, and I'm just talking about small standardized news that you would get from agencies and other outside sources. This is not your investigative, unique content, your brand building content. This is just the standard news that consume too much time from your editorial team. And our team said, hey, what if we start looking at our content from a different way? Is there something like, in this case, evergreen content? And at the end of the day, what they told us, they came to senior management and they said, hey guys, if we want to transform our content business, we need to focus on evergreens. Let's go with the standard news that all the other platforms have that have no brand building purpose, that have nothing that's unique to them, that don't drive engagement. Focus on the evergreens. So this is what we did. When we start talking about roles internally, how we work with evergreens, there are two roles. They will now slowly be merged, combined into one role, but in the past there were two roles. It's the experienced, very well-informed, and very, very smart and strong core content editors, editor-in-chief, Chef vom Dienst in Germany, all the regular editors, the contributors, the freelancers, the authors. They alone would not be successful with evergreens because their schedule is cramped already with news and all the daily work. They need someone else as an assistant, and it's the transaction editor. This is what Garrett told you. That's the magic behind the transaction editor. It's the teamwork. They together, each one alone, would not be successful with evergreen content, but they together are successful. The core content editor takes the content. He writes it. He does the research. He produces that valid, very expensive content, and then the transaction editor is the one generating the transactions, the leads, the monetization behind it. And they, as a team, are the ones really unlocking the magic of evergreen content. Now, as I said, they will be slowly combined into one role this year, just because after 6 years of transformation, which we've gone through since 2011, the whole organization is ready for that. But in the beginning, we would not have been ready. It took us 6 years to get here, and now the whole team is ready after repeating the strategy over and over again, year after year. Now we're ready to really combine these efforts. We have about 50 transaction editors at the moment. When we started the transformation, we had 25, as you've seen this morning. Now it's 50. There might be more next year. But it's really, that's the magic, the teamwork behind it. So when you start doing evergreens, please think about someone in your organization who would be willing, ready, and capable to work as a transaction editor, or however you call it. The key is the workflow behind it, looking at content from a transactional perspective. And you need that for evergreen content. But what really is evergreen content? I have some examples here from taken from this week and last week from some newspapers that I read frequently. Evergreen to me, as I was born in Bavaria and I'm half Austrian, Evergreens are this. It's beer, pretzels, and Blasmusik. Beer is 500 years old, invented once, used ever since. Pretzels, 150 years old, the recipe invented once, used ever since, with small iterations. The music you hear at the Oktoberfest, 100 years old, 150 years old. That's evergreen content. This is what I'm talking about. And our friends from The Guardian, they understand that. I don't think they produce evergreen content on purpose, but that was live 2 days ago on the Guardian website. Perfect evergreen topic. If you use our 7-step process that you will see in a minute, you can take these topics from the Guardian website and turn it into long-lasting, transforming, transactional evergreen content. Here are other examples. In this case, very, very interesting topic. If you look at Google, if you do analysis of search traffic with a software like Searchmetrics or Systrix or any other analysis software, you will see that Mayism as a term is slowly picking up, but there is no competition. There are not that many newspapers talking about it, but there's a huge content interest from the audience. So this is the perfect time now to start crafting your Mayism evergreen content page. If you look at Germany, in this case from Süddeutsche Zeitung in Munich, there's a new local train being built. They're building the second Stammstrecke, the second underground express railway in Munich. It's a huge evergreen topic because it's local. People really care about that. They're very angry at this huge construction site being built in Munich. The whole earth being crammed up to build the new second railway. And this is the perfect time now, since it's now being built, to focus on that as a local newspaper evergreen. This is a really great topic. People care about it, but there's not that much content at the moment. These are other examples. Frankfurter Zeitung, you've heard Mr. Lindner today, perfect evergreen topic. And this is another perfect evergreen topic. So these are all topics I've seen just in the past couple of days where there is audience interest, where there's a constant or increasing search traffic at little to no competition in Google and social media. So these are really great examples for evergreens from newspapers. Some more, in this case from Italy, also great. The first one could be a useful kind of how-to and really data security evergreen. The second one is just device-driven iPhone 8 now, before the iPhone 8 will be introduced. No matter if you're an Italian newspaper, you're German or French or English, you can now start really building out elaborate, huge evergreen content pages for the iPhone 8. Just the final examples here, in this case from France, impeachment. Funny enough, impeachment, potential impeachment of Donald Trump is searched hugely around the world. But the thing is, there are only news out there. There's not a single newspaper that has built out an elaborate evergreen content page that really explains to you what impeachment is, what needs to go in, the 4 steps that need to be taken to start an impeachment process. All the politics behind that. You can really collect content around that and build out an evergreen content for impeachment. The same is for the French soccer team. Funny enough, there's a lot of interest in search engines in France at the moment, but there's not that much content. This is just one story, one out of maybe 2 or 3 last week. So there's really interest, and you can start doing evergreens today with these examples. Now, how do we use evergreen content and how do we produce it? Just to recap, this is the technical infrastructure of the Ebner Media Group. All our websites run on WordPress, open source. All our e-commerce shops, we have 16 at the moment, run on Magento, also open source. By focusing on open source, we were able to invest 8 times more money into editorial resources, hence the 50 transaction editors, than we had to invest into technological infrastructures. This was our way to start doing evergreens, and a content strategy is invest in people and content and not in technology. By focusing on open source, we were able to invest 8 times more, as I said, in people than we did in technology. Just keep that in mind when you think about new kinds of content concepts such as evergreens. And now we go to the 7 steps. It's really quick. You can take them home. Don't skip one. Do them step by step. Take them home to your teams. Repeat them purposefully. Let me know if something goes wrong. I'll be hopefully able to help you. And if not, I'll connect you with some people in our organization who might be able to help you. Step 1, when we start doing evergreens, is also always looking back at what we've learned in the persona interviews. Now you use the persona card, you use the persona channel metrics, and now you identify in the persona building process what topics are of interest for the audience from an ongoing, constant perspective. Once you've done that, you will have, sorry, that was too fast. You will have a selection of keywords that you can now use to start doing your search engine and social media discussion strategy. You take what you've learned in the persona process, you build out with a software like Searchmetrics, Systrix, any other search engine discovery software, you build out your keyword universe. It might be 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 keywords long, You group it together into 300 Uber topics and then start building what becomes your evergreen schedule. And here is the main differentiator to news. You cannot tell me today what is the news of December this year, or November, or October. You can't. But you can do it with evergreens because you know your persona, you know what they're looking for on a constant base, you know what they're discussing in social media on a constant base. You can now map out search traffic and your keywords and your content for the next months. Now you're able to invest money into the right resources and say, if I'm here in May in Vienna and I've learned that evergreens are important, I will be able to identify topics that I can start producing next year in January. But the thing with evergreens is just publishing it once is not really key to success. Once you've published the first version of your evergreen, the work really begins. Now it's about keeping the content fresh, going back to it. We say about every 90 days, so once a quarter, once every 3 months, we go back to every evergreen that we've ever produced, updated with new texts, new key facts, maybe photos, maybe videos, quotes from social media, new e-commerce products, anything that keeps the content fresh and relevant. And we do that every 90 days. This is a small iterative step. It's just sharing the link to the evergreen mapped to your persona channel metrics every 45 days on the social platforms that are relevant to your audience for this particular topic. So if you've produced an evergreen for, let's say, race cars, you would just share this link to the evergreen on the Facebook race car group. If you've produced a recipe for the Thermomix, you would go maybe to gutefrage.net in Germany, you would go to the UK Thermomix community and share the link to the evergreen there. It's just mapping every 45 days what content you have, what evergreen content, and sending it out, nothing else, just a link to that content on the platforms that are relevant for this particular topic. That's nothing else. The fifth step, just making your people aware of what you have. And now we're pretty much done. Sixth step, again, our famous channel metrics. Now you break the evergreen apart. Now you drill down the evergreen, every long evergreen, into all its minimum information units. Again, we call it the Lego principle. It's really similar to Lego. Each piece contains information that can now be combined into larger information brackets, information units. This is the step 6 with the evergreens. Really break it apart into MIUs and then publish it on all the channels that are relevant. And now you're done. Now it's time for your management team and marketing team to convert the audience you have generated. We have a simple rule, it's called 110. If you really are an evergreen expert, you will be able to convert 1% of monthly unique readers to your newsletter database. That is, you just get the email, maybe a name, maybe some more data, maybe not, but 1% per month of your unique audience, because we know from our own analysis that after 1 year, 12 months, 10% of the people you have converted by doing that will end up buying a product. It might be a subscription, it might be single copy, it might be an e-commerce product, it might be an event ticket, it might be a webinar. But we know that if we convert up to 1% of our monthly audience, 10% of them after 1 year will buy a product. And now we can map investments against success. Now we can say, by investing 10,000 euros in evergreens next year, at the end of next year, we will be maybe getting back 10,000 or even more euro. Now we can map content against success. And now you're done. Now you've seen the 7 steps for evergreen content. They look like this. If you map them out together on one chart, it's really nothing else. It's a 4-part process. You've seen the concepts that go into it. It's really just creating them based on personas, the channel metrics, the minimum information unit strategy to atomize the content, then map them out against your touchpoint metrics and channel metrics, and then convert the audience you have generated. And if you've done it wisely, if you've done it correctly, you will get the nice spaghetti curve you've seen from Garrett. It looks like this. You will be able, with just one evergreen, to capture the audience where they are. Whether they read print, they go digitally or elsewhere, you will now be able, because you know where they are, on what time of day and what device, you will be able, with just one evergreen and one topic, to capture the audience. This is how we think about evergreen content. It's a selection process of identifying small atoms and mapping them against the channels that your audience uses, and really trying to drill down to the essentials of content success so that you understand what's happening and you're not just a victim of the fragmented media landscape out there. When we start talking about transformation, and then I'm done, Marcus, we say transformation is communication. We start transforming our people first by teaching them where we want to go. Then, together with our team, we select the right procedures. And then, at the very end, we start talking about technology. Not in the beginning. We start by talking about the transformation of our people. That's communication. Then we together identify new procedures and workflows and routines that we need to get where we want to get. And then we select potentially the right technology. This is how we look at transformation. And with this, I'll leave you. Here's my contact data. Reach out to me if you have any questions, and I wish you a successful day. And enjoy Vienna, and happy evergreening.